Bobo Goes Camping, a short story by Paul McCann. The boxing club had closed, and it was much too quiet a summer for Bobo, so he decided to bring home some of the lads for a hike up the Black Mountain. He thought that while they were up there, it might be a nice idea to camp out with the boys overnight. So one by one he visited the homes of 7 of the Bosco boys and asked permission from their parents to take their boys away on a 2-day adventure. The parents were all too glad to oblige, and so Bobo handed over a list of things that they would need to bring with them in their bags for the camp. When Bobo told the boys, he arranged for them to meet at the clubhouse that Saturday morning at 5 o'clock. As planned, they were all there on time, except for Charlie. Bobo gave him about a half an hour before making his way with all the other lads to his front door. Marching in single file down the road, they came to Charlie's house, where they all stood underneath Charlie's bedroom window. Bobo threw a few small stones against the window pane, which saw the curtains being drawn and Charlie sticking his head out the window. "I'm sorry, Bobo, but the alarm clock never went off." "I'll be right there. Just give me a few minutes," Charlie said. Bobo and the boys waited until Charlie came running out the front door with his backpack kind of thrown over his head. "It doesn't work like that, Charlie," said one of the lads standing on the pavement. Charlie looked up and said, "What do you mean?" "The backpack goes on your back, Charlie, not over your head," came the reply. "Sure, I knew that," said Charlie, as a few of them laughed. Wanting to distract their thoughts, Charlie lifted his foot up and pointed to the soles of his shoes. "See all that?" said Charlie. "All what?" said Stitch. Charlie continued. "The animal paw marks, Stitch. Don't you know anything? I got these shoes just in case we should meet any wild animals up the mountain. If we need to, I can identify their tracks by matching them with those on my shoes." "Oh, Charlie, you're not going anywhere until you change your pajamas," said Bobo. "Oh, sorry, I just forgot. Wait a minute," said Charlie, who rushed back inside the house. A few minutes later, Charlie returned wearing denim jeans, a t-shirt and a pair of white sneakers. Stitch took a long look at Charlie and said, "So, we're not going to wear the animal tracking shoes then?" "No, I changed my mind. I think sneakers will be better for creeping up on things."
Like what things?"
said Brasser. Charlie said, "I don't know, like wild rabbits or bears." "We're going on a bear hunt. I'm not scared," said Lefty. Bobo spoke before anyone else added into the conversation. "Well, are we ready to go now?" "Yes, sir. Let's make tracks," said an over-eager Charlie, who saluted every one of the group. "Right then, off we go, lads, to the mountainside." Bobo took the lead, with the 7 young adventurers marching behind. Through the early morning light, the 8 of them made their way to the foot of Black Mountain. The concrete footpath finished at a clearing where a well-walked track invited them along a pathway through the long grass to the base of the mountain. It was there, beside a trickling stream, that Bobo stopped marching and told all the boys to rest for a moment. He passed around a few maps and pointed up ahead, and then he said, "Well now, I think we should go this way, and we're going to split up into 3 groups. The first group will take that path to the right, and the second group will take the other road to the left. And we're going to go straight up the middle, and when we get to the fallen down tree at the top of the hill, that's where we'll place our tents and camp. Have you got that? Charlie looked at the maps. He couldn't make head or tail of which way to go. Did you say, we go up the middle, Bubble? I said, we're going to split up into 3 groups, and we're going to make our way along to the top of the hill where the fallen tree is. All right, boys? I want to give a few instructions. Now, give me your attention. This weekend, we are going to discover how to survive in the wilderness. Mo spoke up and captured everybody's attention. We're going on a bear hunt and I'm not scared. Stitch answered, saying, I saw a movie once about some boys who went camping and they were surrounded by a family of grizzly bears. The boys were all eaten alive. Lefty answered immediately. I sure think, Mo, that movie doesn't count because bears don't eat people, because I read a book about a girl who ate 3 bowls of porridge and she ended up sleeping with 3 grizzly bears. Before anyone else said anything, Bobo cut in. Well, like, there are no bears in Wolf Mountain, so ease up. Further along the path now, as you go through, we'll come to a junction. Just keep your eyes on the maps. Charlie, I want you to take Stitch and your group. Skater, you take Brasser to the left, and everyone else follow me. I'll go up the mountain, the middle way, and we'll all meet, as I said before, at the fallen tree. I'll mark that place on your maps with a big circle. That's where we're going to set the campsite. Can I come with you, Bobo? Said Charlie. No, Charlie, you must take your group from the junction up the mountain where I told you. It's a big adventure. Don't worry about a thing. Just enjoy yourself. Charlie didn't look happy at all. But what if there's a bear up there? Then tell him you're a hunter and he'll run away, said Bobo. Charlie said, thanks, Bobo. You know everything about camping. Bobo replied, Right then, lads, let's go. Remember, we'll meet at the fallen tree. They split up into their 3 groups and made their way slowly up the mountain paths. Along the way they had to avoid nettles and wild blackberry bushes. They saw a few rabbits and even some squirrels. You know, it was all very exciting and very interesting for the lads who never got away from the village streets. They took with them, along the way, a few things in their backpacks that they had packed the night before. And Bobo's group, they arrived at the fallen tree first, unloaded their backpacks, and dropped to the ground and rested on the grass and waited for the other groups to arrive. Time passed quickly, and finally in came the other groups one by one, all out of breath, but no worse for the wear. Bobo asked everyone to gather round. He took some leaves from his bag and handed them around and said, Now listen to me. Listen, lads. These are the leaves of 7 different trees. Your job is to go and find those trees and scratch your name on the ground beside the tree. Then try to make a mark where you think the tree is on your maps. Got it? The forest is full of trees. Look around you, boys. So don't say you couldn't find your tree. You all have 1 hour to do that and get back here to the camp. Stitch said, But Bobo, we've been working since 5 o'clock this morning. We need a break. I can call a part of your training, boys. Now off you go, and when you return, I'll have some food cooked and ready for you to eat. How does that sound? Stitch replied, Sounds great. Let's go, boys. Mo added, Okay, come on, everybody. Let's go and find some trees. They all set off in different directions. Bobo gathered some kindle wood and soon had a campfire burning. About a foot above the flames, he placed a 1/4-inch hot plate and began cooking some eggs and bacon. It wasn't long before all the boys returned. That was everyone but Charlie. Bobo didn't want the food to get cold, so he told the boys to get out their cutlery and plates and start to eat. Once they had all eaten, Bobo decided they should go and find Charlie. They set off down the track that Charlie had taken, and with Bobo's keen sense of awareness, he was able to follow every step Charlie had taken. After a while, they came to Wolf Cliff. Bobo stood quietly for a few moments, looking up at one of the caves in the cliff face. Then everyone heard it. "Help!" Charlie's voice echoed from inside the cave all around the mountainside. Bobo shouted back, "Hey Charlie, it's Bobo and the boys. Keep calling. We're coming." Charlie continued to scream for help. Bobo and the boys scaled the cliff face until they were right outside the cave where Charlie was. They all made their way into the cave, and soon they saw Charlie, who was sitting in a small pool of water surrounded by bats. Charlie couldn't move for fear. So Bobo and the boys lit some torches to frighten off the bats. Charlie was so happy to see everyone getting his confidence back, he started to make up a story about how he chased a grizzly bear into the corner of the cave, but was driven away by 100 bats who distracted him, and the bear escaped. Bobo was wise to Charlie and his stories. He asked Charlie about the leaf and if he found the tree. And Charlie replied, "Yeah, I lost the leaf you gave me, Bobo, but I did find the tree. It's up there." Charlie pointed to a thin shaft of light that streamed down from the roof of the cave. With further questioning from Bobo and the boys, the truth finally came out. Poor Charlie had been walking around Wolf Hill and somehow had fallen into a pothole. He had slid down an inner channel of Wolf Cliff and landed in a pool of water inside the cave. Apart from a few scratches, Charlie seemed okay. He even wanted to return to the top of the mountain and slide down again into the cave. Bobo encouraged the boys to put that idea on hold and suggested that it was time to return to the campsite. On their return, it was time to pitch the tent, and they all helped to unpack the large canvas and frame. Then they began to hammer in pegs and stretch strings, and with other directions they soon had the tent up and their sleeping bags in and spread out on the floor. As night arrived, they all lay inside their sleeping bags. There were strange scurrying and scratching sounds. Everyone eventually worked out that it was just Bobo mucking around, trying to frighten them. It was really quiet and everyone was just about falling off to sleep when Charlie's voice broke the silence. "Bobo, I have to go and do a thing outside." Bobo replied, "What thing?" A few sniggers was heard. Charlie said, A thing, you know." Bobo replied, "No, Charlie, tell me, what thing?" Quietly, Charlie answered, "I have to go to the toilet." Bobo said, "Well, go on then. Hurry up." Charlie continued, "I can't, Bobo." Bobo said, "Why can't you?" Charlie replied, "Well, it's dark out there and there might be night creatures around." "Charlie, for heaven's sake, take a torch and go behind a tree and do what you have to do. Unless you want me to hold your hand for you." Some more sniggers were heard. Charlie unzipped his sleeping bag and turned on his torch, almost blinding everyone in the tent. Then he felt around the tent looking for the door to get out. Scrambling for the exit, he tripped over a few people who lay there half asleep. Stitch shouted, "Thanks a lot, Charlie." "Nice. Everybody's wide awake." Charlie found the door of the tent and unzipped it open and walked off into the bushes. Inside the tent, they all sat up and waited for Charlie to return. Charlie seemed to be gone a long time. Suddenly they heard his faint cry for help. Bobo stuck his head out of the tent and shouted, "What's going on? Are you okay, Charlie?" Charlie's voice answered, "I dropped the torch, and I can't find my way back to the tent." Bobo replied, "Okay, Charlie, don't panic. Just follow the sound of my voice, and you'll find your way back." Charlie said, "Could you sing me a song, Bobo?" Bobo amused him and began to sing. "If you go down to the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise." As the song continued, Charlie soon was back in the tent. Once again, everyone was settling down and just about to fall asleep. Charlie's voice again spoke. "I can't sleep without Fuzzy. Could you go and find him, Bobo?" Bobo sat up and replied, "What the heck is the matter now, Charlie?" Charlie replied, "Well, I brought Fuzzy over with me into the bushes when I was doing my thing, and then I dropped the torch, and I forgot all about him, and he's still over there somewhere in the darkness." Bobo asked, "Who's Fuzzy?" Charlie answered quietly, "My teddy." A few sniggers were heard, and then a few more. Bobo interrupted and said, "Charlie, you don't mean to tell me you brought a teddy camping with you?" Charlie never answered. As Bobo got to his feet, he asked, "Okay, Charlie, what colour is Fuzzy?" Charlie replied, "He has kind of scruffy, creamy fur, and there's a red scarf wrapped around his neck. He had a pair of black shoes." Now the sniggering around the tent was turning into giggling and eventually laughter. Bobo told them to settle down and continued, "Okay, Charlie, I'll go and find Scruffy for you." When Bobo was out looking for Fuzzy, some of the boys told Charlie not to worry. It seemed like a good idea to do so. Browser produced Messer, who was a kind of soft, cuddly puppy dog. Then, one by one, each of the boys introduced their comforters. There were teddies as well as some other soft toys that had been brought along for the camping trip by the boys. After a brief introduction, all the toys were put away again, and Charlie didn't feel so embarrassed by losing Fuzzy. Bobo found Fuzzy and returned him to Charlie, who was delighted to have his friend back. All was well, and everyone tucked themselves up into little balls and fell fast asleep. Morning came, and Bobo was up getting the campfire started for breakfast. Slowly he began to cook, and the other heads began to stick out from the tent. There was toast and jam with hot chocolate. After breakfast, the boys helped Bobo to wash up. And then they took the tent down and began to pack everything away. The walk back to the village was enjoyed by one and all. They were telling stories, and they promised that one day they would return again to Wolf Cliff and explore the deeper caves. Bobo made the boys promise not to mention anything about Charlie's mishaps or about Fuzzy getting lost in the dark. Everyone agreed, and so it was to be. The end.